तस्मै श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुत पदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखावतांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते बीबी गोविंद स्वामिनिति नामिने नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। गुरु महाराज की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि 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 बोल। So a quick recap of the 14th verse. Three times in the 14th verse, Krishna has said no. 3 times. Na kartritvam, na karmani, na kar phalam sanyogam. 3 times he's saying. Well, what is he saying? That the jiva, who is the master of the city of his body, does not create his activities, he does not induce people to act, and it does not create the fruits of action. Tino. So the very logical question will be,
so you had done till verse 13 na in the last class?
14
में लिखा हुआ तो 13 है।
अच्छा, हाँ 13 है।
लास्ट क्लास में आपने एक वर्स कराया था ना?
Yeah, we did 14.
अच्छा 14 in the last class. Okay.
So so the living entity, the jiva, matlab you and me, within the body, he does nothing, है ना? 3 times the word is being repeated. Na kartritvam, na karmani, na karma phala samyoga, है ना? So this means that the jiva, the conditioned soul, he does not create karma, does not create activities, nor does he induce the people to act, nor does he control the fruits of even his own activities. So naturally the next question will be, who then controls? अगर वो कुछ भी नहीं कर रहा, who then controls the modes of material nature? If all these 3 activities are happening by Sattvagun, Rajogun, Tamogun, the 3 gunas, all this happens by the modes of material nature, all the gunas. So then who is controlling the guna? Is it that the super soul, often though after understanding, people wrongly conclude that the responsibility for all the actions and all reactions falls on Krishna? जब हम कुछ कर ही नहीं रहे, मिर्जा गालिब ने भी एक उर्दू का शेर इस पॉइंट के ऊपर बनाया और फेमस हो गया। मतलब उसके वो शेर सुनने पर वाह 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 लोग करते हैं। उसने ये शेर लिखा था कि कहते हैं कि पत्ता भी तेरी रजा से हिलता है ना? कहते हैं कि पत्ता भी तेरी रजा से हिलता है, फिर भी कहते हैं कि बंदा गुनहगार है। वाह 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 वाह, people are saying. What is he trying to say? कि अगर पत्ता भी तेरी रजा से हिल रहा है तो मैं क्यों गुनहगार हूं? मैं जो अच्छा कर रहा हूं वो भी तेरी वजह से है, जो बुरा कर रहा हूं वो भी तू ही करवा रहा है. जब सब कुछ तेरी वजह से ही हो रहा है ना? पत्ते भी तेरी वजह से हिल रहे हैं तो बंदा क्यों गुनहगार है ना? Thank God Bhagwad Gita is here and Prabhupada is here to explain this rubbish philosophy. You know that फिर हम तो कुछ कर ही नहीं रहे. अगर हमसे कुछ बुरा हो रहा है वो भी कृष्णा की जिम्मेवारी है. और people say that because super soul only is the doer of everything, then he only must be responsible for my sinful actions also. जब वही करवा रहा है सब कुछ, मेरे कंट्रोल में तो है नहीं, तो जो पाप कर्म है उसके लिए भी वही. So why then should I receive the reactions for what is being caused by the super soul? Isn't it? To remove this misconception, immediately Krishna says in the next verse, because he knows Kalyug hai, पूछेंगे ही लोग ये, है ना? Rascal mind है सबका. So 15th verse. So that's why I wanted to revise the 14th verse. 3 times he says no, 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 है ना? क्या चीजें नहीं कर रहे वो? न कार्तृत्वम, न कर्माणि, न कर्म फल संयोगा. तीनों ही चीजें जीवा नहीं कर सकता. Correct? So verse 15. Paiji?
नादते कस्यचित् पापं न चैव सुकृतिं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge.
So he's immediately clarifying that the Supreme Lord, है ना, he does not assume anyone's sinful or pious, even pious. He does not assume their activities. The embodied beings, matlab the jivas, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. What is their ignorance? That I am this body. And because of that ignorance, the Sanskrit word Vibhu means the Supreme Lord who is full of these 7. Bhagwan, क्यों इनको भगवान बोला जाता है? Because he is supreme in knowledge, riches, strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation. That is why anyone who satisfies these 6 conditions can be called God. He is always satisfied in himself. He is undisturbed by sinful or pious activities. He does not create a particular situation for any living entity, but the living entity, bewildered by ignorance, desires to be put into certain conditions of life. And therefore, the chain of action and reaction begins. अपनी मर्जी से, अपने desire से उसकी इच्छा होती है according to वो किस गुण में है. सत्व गुण में है तो उसकी पुण्य काम करने की इच्छा होती है. रजोगुण तमोगुण में है तो पाप कर्म करने की इच्छा होती है. लेकिन ये दोनों ही इच्छाएं उसकी अपनी मर्जी से हो रही हैं. So the Lord immediately understands that, like the fragrance. जैसे आप किसी फूल के पास हो तो अपने आप आपको उसकी खुशबू आ जाती है. आपको पता करने की जरूरत नहीं है कौन सा फूल है. You will know. उसी तरह भगवान को हमारे डिजायर्स की, हमारी मेंटालिटी की खुशबू आ जाती है. And he sanctions. जो हमें चाहिए he will sanction. अच्छा also he will sanction, बुरा also he will sanction. But उनकी sanction के बगैर हम कुछ भी कर नहीं पाएंगे. So that's the meaning of that he controls everything. So he will sanction that, okay, go ahead, तुम्हारी इच्छा है, because he does not interfere in free will, in your minute independence. Nevertheless, he is prone to be influenced by the ignorance due to his limited power. Now the Lord is omnipotent, but the living entity is not omnipotent, matlab all powerful. The Lord is Vibhu, or omniscient, but the living entity is anu, or atomic. Omniscient means knowing everything. So he's all powerful, he knows everything. और जीवा ये दोनों ही चीजें नहीं. So when the living entity is bewildered in his desires, the Lord allows him to fulfill those desires, but the Lord is not responsible for them. He is just sanctioning. है ना, जैसे आप दुकान में जाते हो, केमिस्ट के पास जाते हो दवाई खरीदने, अगर आप पूरी रकम दे रहे हो तो केमिस्ट आपको वो दे देगा, जहर भी अगर मांग रहे हो वो दे देगा. He is not going to sit in judgment कि ये आप क्यों ले रहे हो. If you have given him the exact money, he will give you. But it is your desire to buy poison or to buy sleeping pills or to do whatever, which medicine you are exerting that desire. So you will get the reaction. Can you hold the chemist responsible for giving you poison? You will say कि सब कुछ उसकी मर्जी से होता है, मैं अपने घर से तो पॉइजन लाया नहीं, मेरे घर में तो बनता भी नहीं है, उसी के पास कंट्रोल है, उससे मैं लेकर आया. So he is responsible for the death that has been caused for this poison. Yes.
Can I ask something?
Hmm.
But when we are in Krishna consciousness and when we are chanting and we are doing all our duties, then Krishna gives us only those things which are.
So I haven't come to that point yet.
No, I'm asking you.
इसकी तो अभी बात ही नहीं हो रही, आएंगे वहां पे. Krishna consciousness is above this. Yes. As long as you are working according to your own rules and regulations, you will be implicated in the punishment of your actions. But the moment you start working or executing your karma according to the rules of Krishna, then it is Krishna's responsibility, not yours.
So my question is that suppose, you know what, if my desires are still getting fulfilled, if I'm in Krishna consciousness, if my desires are still getting fulfilled, then that is an indication that God wants me to have those things.
He's sanctioning those desires. Yes, he's sanctioning them. Are you saying that because you are in Krishna consciousness, whatever pap karma you are doing and you're still getting away with it, this means it is his desire?
No, not pap karma. There are certain desires which are not genuine. I mean, which I feel that
pap karma, na? Let's call it a spade a spade. There are some desires which you know very well are not in conjunction with Krishna consciousness, but they are getting fulfilled. यही कह रहे हो ना?
So if they are getting fulfilled, so Lord is sanctioning it, or you know what, they are okay. You know, I mean,
they are not okay. They are not okay. They are not being sanctioned. उनका reaction मिलेगा in a future date, because we know that पाप कर्म की एक journey होती है. 4 stages होती हैं, कूट, बीज, प्रारब्ध, अप्रारब्ध. तो reaction आने में time लगता है. Correct? So if you know that you are having desires that are not according to the codes of Krishna or not according to the laws of dharma, then you will get the reactions of those.
And if they are according to the laws of dharma, then I will not.
Then you will not, yes. So let us not be fooled that क्योंकि हम Krishna consciousness में हैं तो हम अधर्म का भी अगर पाठ कर लेते हैं क्योंकि मैं Krishna consciousness में हूँ, I am safe. No, you are safe as long as you are following the tenets of dharma. As long as you're following the codes of Bhagwad Gita, of the Shastra. Correct? Sanction तो होगा आपका. पाप कर्म भी sanction होंगे. Whatever you want to buy, you will get. But you will also get the reaction if it is not according to dharma. So the Lord is the constant companion of the living entity as Paramatma or the super soul. And therefore he can understand the desires of the individual soul, just as one can smell the flavor of a flower by being near it. So desire is a subtle form of conditioning for the living entity. The Lord fulfills his desire as he deserves. Man proposes and God disposes. कहते हैं ना, man सिर्फ propose इच्छा कर सकता है, लेकिन वो इच्छा पूरी होगी इसका पावर उसके हाथ में नहीं है. The individual is not omnipotent in fulfilling his desires. है ना? He is not all powerful. But the Lord, however, can fulfill all desires, and the Lord, being neutral to everyone, does not interfere with the desires of the minute independent living entity. However, when one desires Krishna, here to answer Neha's question, when one desires Krishna, the Lord takes special care and encourages one to desire in such a way that one can attain to him and be eternally happy. The Vedic hymns therefore declare, Esau hui eva sadhu karma karayati tam yam ebhyo lokebhya unni sate esa yu efa sadhau karma karayati yam adho nini shate. The Lord engages the living entity in pious activities so that he may be elevated. The Lord engages him in impious activities so that he may go to hell. So the living entity is completely dependent in his distress and happiness. By the will of the Supreme, he can go to heaven or to hell, just as a cloud is driven by the air. This is a very good example. That's why Shastra is the best in giving such a nice example they have given. Consider yourself like a cloud. How much power does a cloud have? Almost nothing. अगर हवा लेफ्ट में उड़ेगी तो क्लाउड को लेफ्ट में ही जाना पड़ेगा, इवन दो उसकी इच्छा राइट में जाने की. अगर हवा राइट में चलेगी तो क्लाउड को राइट में ही जाना पड़ेगा, है ना? So the हवा is the will of the Lord and the cloud is the jiva. The cloud is us. So the cloud will be driven by air completely. He is completely under the power of the air. He does not have any power to go choose his own direction. कैसे जाना है? But whatever he desires, he will have to depend on the will of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the embodied soul. I mean, this example has been given just to show that although we may think that we are putting all the effort, we are doing all the karma, but our position will still remain that of a cloud. जो भी result आएगा, वो हमारी वजह से नहीं आ रहा है. वो air की वजह से आ रहा है, जिसने उस cloud को धक्का दिया और लेके गए. Supposing the cloud desired that I want to go, I am over America right now, I want to go over India. And if the cloud starts feeling कि मैं अपने power से ही आ गया, अमेरिका से उड़ता हुआ इंडिया तक, that is his ignorance. केवल एयर के पावर की वजह से वो वहां पहुंचा है, उसका अपना बिल्कुल भी कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है वहां तक पहुंचने के लिए. So he should not take credit for any result that, for anywhere that he reaches or whatever he does. अगर वो भारी बन रहा है, उसमें से बारिश गिर रही है, if it's a rain laden cloud also, that is not his because of his power. That power also is not belonging to him. It's not because of him. It is because of evaporation and air again. Is that clarifying? But just always feel, the cloud always feels I am the rain giving cloud, है ना? मेरी वजह से बारिश हो रही है, मैं उड़ रहा हूँ इस country के ऊपर से, I am doing it, but it's not him actually. He's just a puppet. So therefore the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. Consequently, although he is Satchitanand, but due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his position of service to the Lord, and therefore he is entrapped by nescience. And under the spell of ignorance, he claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. But the Lord neither hates nor likes anyone, although he appears to be so. So here, I want to read Srila Vyasadeva. By contact with the soul, the subtle body seems to be conscious, while the soul appears to be the doer. But Vyasadeva rejects this idea in the Vedanta Sutra. He says that the Jiva soul must be a performer of actions, because the injunctions of scriptures must have some purpose. ये किस बात का जवाब दे रहे हैं व्यासदेव? कि अगर कुछ भी उसकी इच्छा से नहीं होता, अगर क्लाउड का अपना कोई पावर ही नहीं है, everything is happening because of air, then how can you hold the cloud responsible for anything? है ना? कि उसने बारिश यहाँ पे दी, बारिश वहां पे नहीं दी, एक जगह उसने सूखा कर दिया, दूसरी जगह उसने सूखा नहीं किया. Why blame the cloud? You know, everything is happening because of air only. भगवान की वजह से ही हो रहा है. So Vyasadeva is giving an argument to reject this theory. He's saying that the soul must be the performer of actions because the injunctions of scripture must have some purpose. The jiva, Baldev Vidyabhushan says, the jiva not the modes of nature, is the doer. Why? Because the injunctions of scripture must have some purpose. For example, मतलब अगर सब कुछ भगवान ही कर रहे हैं तो शास्त्र क्यों बनाए, ये वो कह रहे हैं. शास्त्र लिखने की क्यों जरूरत थी, ऐसे करो ऐसे मत करो. अगर सब कुछ भगवान ने ही करना था, he needs no guidance, no, कि सत्व गुण में करो, रजो में मत करो, तमो में मत करो. ये इतने सारे जो शास्त्र बनाए हैं, इतने इंजंक्शंस बनाए हैं, भगवद गीता बनाई है, ये इंजंक्शंस क्यों बनाए हैं अगर जीवा कुछ नहीं करता तो. करेक्ट? दैट्स अ सॉलिड आर्ग्यूमेंट. सो द जीवा, not the modes of nature are the doer. No, it's not like that. Under the influence of sattva gun, rajagun, tamogun, the jiva is doing, but ultimately the desire is of the jiva only. गुणों का desire नहीं है अपना, गुणों को तो इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा है, but desire जीवा का है to enjoy, or to enjoy against the tenets of dharma. Hence he is responsible. और इसीलिए ये injunctions दिए गए हैं जीवा को गाइड करने के लिए, क्या करना है क्या नहीं करना है. So although the Lord is responsible for everything, but karma, the jiva is responsible. The Lord is responsible for everything को ऐसे समझना चाहिए कि वो अपनी पावर से उसको करके दे रहे हैं, उसकी अपनी पावर से वो उसको अलाउ कर रहे हैं. Okay, go ahead. You want to kill someone? Go ahead. You want to eat something objectionable? Go ahead. You want to do some sinful activity? Go ahead. वो अपनी पावर से उसको सैंक्शन जरूर कर रहे हैं, लेकिन इच्छा जीवा की है करने की, सैंक्शन वो उसकी इच्छा की नहीं कर रहे. सो ही विल बी रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द रिएक्शन दैट ही गेट्स. इज दैट क्लियर? इज दिस कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियर टू एवरीवन? How the living entity in the tight grip of material nature is the doer. I'll give you a very nice example. How the living entity in the tight grip of material nature is the doer can be compared to the attempt of a small boy to lift a heavy weight that he has just seen his father lift. ठीक है, यहां तक ठीक है? We just saw our father lift गैस का सिलेंडर. ठीक है, अपने आप पूरा सिलेंडर उठा के किचन तक ले आए, और ये 3-4 साल का बच्चा है, वो भी कहता है अच्छा पापा ने उठाया मैं भी उठाऊंगा. करते हैं ना बच्चे, ऐसे एक्टिंग करते हैं, मैं भी उठाऊंगा. ठीक है. सो द बॉय फर्स्ट डिजायर्स टू लिफ्ट द वेट. पहले उसके अंदर इच्छा जागी कि वो कर रहे हैं मैं भी करूं. देन ही ट्राइज इट, फिर उसने वो कर्म किया. करेक्ट? नाउ ही कैन नॉट पॉसिबली सक्सीड. उठा तो पाएगा नहीं वो. एक्टिंग कर रहा है, एक्टिंग नहीं कर रहा, खूब कोशिश कर रहा है. बट his father sees his small son's desire. पिता आए, पिता he got amused कि ये देखो मेरी कॉपी करने की कोशिश कर रहा है. So what does the father do? He stands above the boy. Okay, he stands and out of affection he picks up the cylinder. But he lets the boy feel कि वो ही उठा रहा है. कितनी बार किया ना हमने ये बच्चों के साथ, कि अपना हाथ नीचे लगा दिया, बच्चे को नहीं पता है कि किसी और का हाथ नीचे लगा हुआ है, और बच्चे को लगता है मैंने उठाया है, लेकिन उसे खुश करने के लिए पिताजी ने ये काम कर दिया और खुद सामने नहीं आया. बट हो किसकी वजह से रहा है? पिता की वजह से. ओके, thus the father has actually lifted the weight, but he cannot be considered the only lifter. इच्छा किसकी थी? बच्चे की. Unless the desire had been expressed and the attempt made by the child, the father never would have helped and the weight would never have been lifted. Is it clear now? उन पिता की डायरेक्शन नहीं थी जाओ जाके सिलेंडर उठाओ. अगर उनसे पूछा जाता, अगर बच्चा उनसे पूछने आता तो वो मना करते. बच्चे ने पूछा नहीं, सिर्फ इच्छा जाहिर की और कर्म करने लग गया. तो क्योंकि फादर ने देखा कि अच्छा इसका मन है करने का, तो उन्होंने एक्चुअल पावर फादर का ही लगा, तभी वो कंप्लीट हुआ. बट द रिजल्ट एंड रिएक्शन विल गो टू द चाइल्ड, क्योंकि इच्छा उसकी थी, फादर की नहीं थी. So the living entity should not, like the child, become bewildered by false ego and pride and consider himself the doer of activities for which he has no ability to perform. That does not mean, however, that the living entity can avoid the responsibility of having performed the activity. because it was he who expressed the desire, he who made the attempt, and he who wants to enjoy the fruit. तीनों चीजें, thinking, willing and feeling. Thinking, feeling and willing. ये तीनों चीजें बच्चे ने की. So when the living entity is ignorant of his eternal relationship with Krishna, he chooses his position as an independent enjoyer, which in turn welds him to the material nature and places him under its control. Therefore, he is responsible for his own reactions. Does this clarify how, although we have no power to do anything, but whatever thoughts, words and deeds we commit, रिएक्शन उसका हम ही को मिलेगा, ना मटेरियल नेचर को मिलेगा, ना सुप्रीम फादर को मिलेगा जिसके पावर से वो सब हो रहा है. Yes, Anjali.
So, agar if the child would not have desired to lift the cylinder, तो father attempt करता ही नहीं, है ना?
Yes.
So similarly, matlab only when we don't desire to do something, some wrong activity, so Krishna won't prompt us or move us towards that side.
No. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the correction has to be at the desiring level or the thinking level.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. This is a very practical example. Jai Srila Prabhupada. How nicely he has explained this. Hai na? So it is the child only who will be responsible. Although उसमें बिल्कुल दम नहीं है कुछ भी करने का. क्या कर सकता है 3 साल का बच्चा? For everything he is dependent on the mercy of the father. ना उसके पास wealth है, ना उसके पास strength है, कुछ नहीं है. लेकिन जब सिलेंडर उठा, he takes all the credit. देखो मेरी वजह से हो गया. उसी तरह हम जो भी कर रहे हैं लाइफ में, रिजल्ट अगर आ रहा है, it is not because of us. किसी का हाथ लगा हुआ है नीचे. But we are taking all the credit for our मेहनत. At the same time, जो बुरा हो रहा है उसका हम रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं लेते. दोनों की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी हमारी है.
So, Vanita, the correction should happen at the desire level then, right?
Absolutely.
It depends on what we are desiring. So, every desire that is material, depending on the modes of our, whichever nature that we have, is going to end up in karma.
Yes.
God will still help us, depending on our karma and whatever, to achieve it or not achieve it. But there are definitely going to be reactions for that.
Yes.
So the desire should be completely, transcendental,
in line with
Krishna
his
conscious.
instructions. In line with his instructions. Then he takes all the responsibility.
Okay.
Just as we did the example in the last class, that if you are a domestic animal, you never have to worry about your maintenance. Because your master then is worried. आप बीमार हो, मास्टर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है ना? आप भूखे हो, मास्टर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. यू वांट टू मेट, मास्टर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. लेकिन अगर आप जंगल के जानवर हो, you have not accepted any master above you, who is responsible for you? You are at the mercy of the modes of material nature. अपने आप करो.
So this also is connected to akarma, vikarma, and karma, right?
No, this is connected to surrender and willingly becoming a servant of the instructions of the Lord, not trying to live independently according to your own rules and regulations. If you willingly come under the direction or instructions of the Lord and start following the codes of Dharam and Shastra, this means you have become a servant of the Lord, then you have come under his guidance and his protection. Then he is responsible for your maintenance.
Okay.
And you will be safe from any reaction. You will be safe. You will not get any reaction. For all the karmas that you do, there is no reaction. Neither for pap nor for punya. If they are in line with the codes of conduct of the Shastra. ठीक?
Thank you.
Okay, so we've done 15. Now we do 16.
Shall I go ahead?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Jnanena tu tat jnanam esham nasitam atmanah tesham adityavat jnanam prakashayati tatparam. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime.
So this verse is showing कि जैसे ही आपको शास्त्र चक्षु से ज्ञान हो जाता है on how exactly to behave and what to do and what not to do, then nescience is destroyed, ignorance is destroyed, and everything becomes as clear. Just as अंधेरे में हम चल रहे हैं और तुक्के से हम तुक्का लगा रहे हैं कि यहाँ पे खाई है, इससे बच जाते हैं, है ना, आगे खड्डा है, यहाँ से बच जाते हैं. मतलब how difficult it is to travel in the night, isn't it? लेकिन उसी सड़क पे चलते चलते जैसे ही सूरज आता है, वही सड़क है, वही एनवायरनमेंट है, सब कुछ वही है, आप भी वही हो, चल रहे हो, लेकिन everything becomes so crystal clear, and then without fear you can choose your direction, isn't it? So शास्त्र is like sunlight, कि आपके अंधकार रूपी जीवन में एकदम से प्रकाश डाल दिया और सारा कंफ्यूजन चला जाता है, क्लैरिटी मिल जाती है और बच जाते हो खड्डों से, बच जाते हो खाई से, बच जाते हो जंगली जानवरों से, क्योंकि अब वो दिख रहे हैं. अंधेरे में वो दिखते ही नहीं, भिड़ जाते हैं आप उनके साथ. Okay? So those who have forgotten Krishna must certainly be bewildered. But those who are in Krishna consciousness are not bewildered at all. It is stated in the Bhagwad Gita, Sarvam Jnana Phalena Jnanagnihi Sarva Karmani and Nahi Jnanena Sadrisham. Knowledge is always highly esteemed. हम knowledge को बहुत, हमने actually knowledge को बड़ा degrade कर दिया है. For us, knowledge means college degree or PhD, है ना, या thesis or chartered accountancy. For us, knowledge is just this. Nowhere are we considering that life जीने के लिए भी knowledge चाहिए. उस knowledge की हम की वैल्यू ही नहीं है कोई हमारे लिए. वो हमें लगता है हम पूछ के कर लेंगे या अपने हिसाब से कर लेंगे या गूगल पापा से पूछ लेंगे या व्हाट्सएप से पूछ लेंगे. उसको हम कोई वैल्यू ही नहीं दे रहे, जबकि it is a matter of life and death. इतना crucial है knowledge, but knowledge of life. So knowledge is always highly esteemed. And what is that knowledge? Perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders unto Krishna, as it is said in the 7th chapter. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanvan mam prapadyante. Bahunam janmanam ante. After millions of janam, ante, जन्मों के बाद ज्ञानवान जो इंटेलिजेंट है, माम प्रपद्यन्ते, वो मेरी शरण में आता है. After passing through many births, when one perfect in knowledge surrenders unto Krishna, or when one attains Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him, as everything is revealed by the sun in the daytime. The living entity is bewildered in so many ways. For instance, when he unceremoniously, अंजलि चली गई
या उसने चैट बॉक्स में डाला है, she has to leave.
Okay. The living entity is bewildered in so many ways. For instance, when he unceremoniously thinks himself as God, he actually falls into the last snare of nescience. है ना? In the end, the living being ultimately feels that भगवान अगर मेरे अंदर ही है, परमात्मा है मेरे अंदर, तो मैं ही भगवान हूँ. This is the last snare of Maya. So, does God become bewildered by nescience? अगर आप खुद भगवान हो, तो फिर आप कभी bewilder हो सकते हो अगर आप भगवान हो तो? If so, then nescience or Satan is greater than God. और अगर आप कंफ्यूजन में हो, bewilderment में हो, तो इसका मतलब फिर जो सेटन है, पाप पुरुष है, वो भगवान से ज्यादा पावरफुल हो गया, isn't it? क्योंकि अगर आप भगवान हो और आपको ऑपरेशन की जरूरत पड़ रही है, so this means that what kind of a God are you? Isn't it? Real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is in perfect Krishna consciousness. Therefore, one has to seek out such a bona fide spiritual master and under him learn what Krishna consciousness is. For Krishna consciousness will certainly drive away all nescience, just as the sun drives away darkness. So, humbly, pranipatena pachena seva. These are the qualities. Humble, inquiring submissively, and accepting the guidance or the superiority of a spiritual master in your life will be the best way to guide you out of the precarious condition in which we are in. Even though a person may be in full knowledge that he is not this body, अगर आपको अपने ही इंटेलिजेंस के बूते पर यहाँ तक भी समझ आ गई कि I am not this body, I am this soul, he still may not be able to discriminate between the soul and super soul. फिर भी वो खतरे से बाहर नहीं है. However, he can know everything well if he cares to take shelter of the perfect, bona fide, Krishna conscious spiritual master. So Prabhupada is actually stressing on the need to have a guru in your life. One can know God and one's relationship with God only when one actually meets a representative of God. A representative of God never claims that he is God. ये लक्षण है bona fide guru के, genuine guru के. He will never claim that he is God, although he paid all the respects that are ordinarily paid to God, because he has knowledge of God. So one has to learn the distinction between God and the living entity. So Lord Shri Krishna therefore stated in the second chapter that every living being is individual and that the Lord also is individual. They were all individuals in the past. They are individuals at present and they will continue to be individuals in future, even after liberation. At night, we see everything as one in the darkness. But in the day when the sun is up, we see everything in its real identity. So identity with individuality in spiritual life is real knowledge. What he's saying is, spiritual life ka matlab ye nahi hai that all is one. Yeah, there is just one light and everybody went and merged into that light. So then it would be such a boring spiritual life. There is no activity only there. Everybody is just merged into that light. But what is real? What is the real knowledge? That identity with individuality. Bhagwan bhi hai independently wahan, aap bhi ho independently wahan. You are also separately there with your own separate desires. He is also separately present with his own will and his own desires, and both of you coexist. This is real knowledge. The only difference is the relationship is that of the mother and the submissive child or the obedient child. Controller वही हैं, वही रहेंगे, और हम उनकी इच्छा के अनुसार जब जिएंगे तो हमारी individuality, we will be able to enjoy our own individuality also, as long as we don't go against him. If you have a loving relationship with someone, how does a happy family life, happy married life कब होती है? जब सबके अंदर cooperation होता है, सब एक दूसरे का mood समझते हैं और एक दूसरे को support करते हैं. Isn't it? Real pleasure comes in such an environment only, ना, जहाँ पे conflict नहीं हो, जहाँ सबका mood एक जैसा है. Everybody accepts the father as the head of the family, the mother as the head of the family, and the children follow the guidelines set out by the parents. So there is still hasi mazak, there is still individual needs. सब अपनी अपनी मर्जी से खाना खाते हैं, सब अपनी अपनी मर्जी के प्लान्स बनाते हैं, yet they are all individual, yet they are all under the same roof, but under the same guidance. Such is same way it is in the spiritual world. सब अपनी मर्जी से वहां पर खा पी रहे हैं, एक्टिविटीज अलग अलग कर रहे हैं, अलग अलग सेवाएं कर रहे हैं, लेकिन मूड सबका एक ही है, that I am here to please Krishna. I'm a servant of Krishna. Even if I'm his friend, I want to please him like his servant. Even if I'm his mother or his father, I want to do what he likes. This is the mood. And those who don't have that mood, or those who rebel, that mujhe inko supreme nahi manna, you know, I want ke those people are sent to this material world for rectification. कि ठीक है, आपको अपनी आपकी ईगो इतनी बड़ी हो गई that you do not want to be under the guidance of Krishna. ठीक है, आप यहाँ पे जाकर इंडिपेंडेंटली अपनी विल के हिसाब से जीने की कोशिश कीजिए. And with the hope that when he repeatedly sees that nothing is working, despite his best efforts, he will realize that he made a mistake, and he will ultimately agree to come under the care and direction of Krishna. So Krishna waits for that day. Until that day, he continues to sanction your desires. Okay, aapko jo karna hai karo, jahan jana hai jao. And then he just hopes ke difficulties ki thapede kha ke the jiva will come to his senses. This is real knowledge. This is the actual knowledge. Should we go any further? Let me show you the PPT. So for the 14th verse, we already did this. That the Lord has two energies, superior and inferior. Superior is us, jivas, and inferior is the material world. And what is the cause of suffering? When the soul comes in contact with this material world. You know, you can see these three: sattva gun, rajogun, and tamogun. इनकी डोर में हम कठपुतली की तरह बंधे हुए हैं, and that's where our suffering starts. And temporary body is the cause of varieties of activities and reactions of those activities. And in our ignorance, we identify with the activities of the body and we suffer. Solution क्या है? Krishna consciousness. वो क्या मतलब है? Krishna consciousness का क्या मतलब है? Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam. That living entity realizes he is not the master. Master is someone else. Let me submit to that master. Prabhu. As long as he is in the city of the body, he appears to be the Prabhu. But he is neither the Prabhu nor the controller of his actions or reactions. So when he comes to this realization, automatically his suffering stops. Then in the 15th verse, we saw about Vibhu and Anu. The super soul or the Paramatma is called Vibhu. Vibhu matlab omniscient. Omniscient matlab he knows everything and he is all powerful. And he's always satisfied in himself. He does not depend on anyone for his pleasure. He is Atmaram. He is undisturbed by any sinful or pious activities. He is not under the control of the three modes of nature. He does not create any situation for any living entity. This is the status of Paramatma. And what is the status of a soul or a Jivatma? That he is Anu. Anu means prone to ignorance. Kyunki limited power hai. Because the soul is full of knowledge and bliss. Then as part of the Supreme Lord, he has the capacity to desire. Free will ek di hui hai, chahe choti si hai, but he has the Lord has given him free will to desire as he wants. But desire is a subtle form of conditioning. And it's a dangerous freedom that has been given, because desires only to be put into a certain condition of life. Hence, he's stuck in the cycle of action and reaction. And in ignorance, ऊपर से वो ignorance में भी है, so he claims that भगवान ही responsible है मेरे दुख के लिए. सुख के लिए भी भगवान responsible है, दुख के लिए भी भगवान responsible है. And some will even go further to say सुख के लिए तो I am responsible क्योंकि मैंने बहुत पुण्य काम किए, दुख के लिए he is responsible. है ना? So Paramatma is the witness and the permitter. How? You can see in this tree there are two birds. This is Bhagavatam में ये example दिया जाता है कि हमारा हृदय is like this tree. उसमें one bird is us, the soul, and the other bird is the super soul sitting next to the soul. Side by side दोनों बैठे. So the desires of the living entities, the desire of the soul is fulfilled by the super soul who is sitting next to him, and he gets the fragrance of all his desires. And he fulfills that desire. The analogy is given of a flower. And just as the constant companion of a soul understands the desires of a soul, similarly, one can smell the fragrance of the flower by being near it. So the Lord is neutral to everyone. This is given in the Kausitaki Upanishad and Vedanta Sutra, that he does not interfere with the desires of the jiva. But when the jiva gets very confused and bewildered, then he allows him to fulfill his desires. But he's not responsible for the situation that has been created. And when the living entity desires Krishna, जब वो so far जब तक ये जो tree है, ये जो soul है इस tree में बैठा हुआ, all the time he is busy eating the fruits of that tree. He's not looking at the super soul. He's not bothered. He just keeps jumping from branch to branch. You know, अब ये fruit खा लेता हूँ, अब वो fruit खा लेता हूँ, अब यहाँ उड़ के चला जाता हूँ, अब इस दूसरे bird से मिलके थोड़ा enjoy कर लेता हूँ. And the super soul patiently waits कि ये मेरी कब देखेगा. तो जब तक ये अपने fruits खा रहा है, अपनी मर्जी से उड़ रहा है, आ जा रहा है, दूसरों से mingle कर रहा है, तब तक ये दुखी रहेगा. He will always be under the fear of birth, death, old age, and disease. But the moment he starts turning towards the super soul sitting next to him, he starts looking at him, he starts talking to him, he starts hearing him, immediately all his confusions, all his fears, and all his misfortune disappears, because now he is looking at the super soul. He has come under the guidance of the super soul bird sitting next to him, and he becomes happy, eternally happy. फिर पेड़ में कुछ भी हो रहा हो, पेड़ में आग लग गई, पेड़ में कोई शिकारी आ गया सब बर्ड्स को पकड़ने के लिए, है ना, पेड़ में सूखा पड़ गया, सारे फ्रूट्स गिरने लग गए, this bird is not bothered at all कि मैं सुपर सोल के बगल में बैठा हूँ, he will take care. He is not bothered by the difficulties of this material world, because he has taken shelter of the Paramatma, and he becomes happy. And the last verse, knowing the relations between the super soul, soul, and material nature. तीनों की एक बार position पता चल जाए ना, then it allows one to be detached from all the phal. So there are two categories of bewilderment. Bewilderment matlab confusion. Knowledge in Krishna consciousness removes all bewilderment. So which are the two categories? One is to think that I am God, and the other is to identify oneself with the matter, that I am this body. है ना, ये body मेरी है, I am the controller. So one who thinks that he is only God, you know, परमात्मा उसके अंदर है तो मैं ही भगवान हूँ, he actually falls into the last snare of nescience. And if a living entity is God, how can he be confused then? This means God is can be easily confused. God can be fearful because all these feelings are in you. कभी आपको डर लग रहा है, कभी आप confused हो. So if you are God, how can you be feeling all these things? This means God also gets fearful. God is also confused. So this logic is not very strong logic. And if you think that you are this body, that also will make you miserable. But if you come to Krishna consciousness, then it glorifies knowledge. And what is that perfect knowledge? To know oneself different from the body. That I am a soul inside this body. Body is just my shirt. I don't have to be very attached to the shirt. To know that one can never become God, and thus the soul is eternally different from the super soul. And how is this knowledge achieved? You first find out a bona fide spiritual master, and then under his direction, you start practicing Krishna consciousness. Then perfect knowledge is achieved when you surrender to Krishna through a guru. And what is the quality of a guru? What are the characteristics of a guru? Guru is one who will never claim that he is God, although he is paid all respect, which is ordinarily paid to God, because he has knowledge of God. But a guru will always connect you to Krishna. If a person connects you to him, then he is not a genuine guru. जो खुद के साथ कनेक्ट करवाए, है ना, मेरे दरबार में आओ, मेरी सुनो, मैं जो कह रहा हूँ करो, he is not a genuine guru. But if a guru says that this is God, and you have to listen to him, this is what he is saying, and I'm just a representative of him, he is a genuine guru. And शास्त्र ये भी कहते हैं कि आपका जैसा भाव है, जैसा आपका मूड है, आपको वैसा ही गुरु मिलेगा. If you have a cheating propensity, you will find a cheating guru. If you are yourself not sincere, you will find that guru, that kind of a guru. But if you are genuine and sincere in your desire to actually be serious about your spiritual life, then you will get a genuine bona fide guru. So we really can't blame the dhongi gurus and babas in the market and the society today. Because market तभी लगती है जब demand होती है ना? There is no market without demand. So everything that also, if we are cheated by a cheating guru, that karma also is our fault, because we were looking for a shortcut. So we submitted to a cheating guru. Okay. So with that, we close class.